Okay, good morning again, everyone. Thank you for joining us here for our application workshop. Looks like we've got still some people rolling in, which is awesome. Welcome. A couple of housekeeping things, actually. Let's start with introductions. I always get into housekeeping things and forget to introduce myself. My name is Deanna Gerber. I'm the recruitment coordinator here at the College of Veterinary Medicine. So essentially, my job is to work with students heading to vet school someday. Joining me today is Kathy Keel, our coordinator of admissions. So Kathy, do you want to say hi and introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Kathy Keel. I handle the admissions process. So where Deanna works with you, basically before you get here, once you file an application, I handle everything that goes along with that, as well as advising students on courses and how to make it through the process.
Great, thank you, Kathy. Okay, so some housekeeping items. First, you should see at the bottom of your toolbar, you should see you should see a Zoom toolbar at some point. Sometimes it's on the top, sometimes it's on the bottom. I know a lot of us are getting more acquainted with Zoom the more we do online meetings and stuff like that. But in the chat box, I just posted a link to a shared file folder. Currently, that folder has this presentation. It has our application checklist that's updated for this application cycle, and a link to our apply website. So it's Iowa State, or vetmed.iastate.edu. And it's specifically all of those helpful links for students who are applying. So you can absolutely click on that, copy and paste it, save it so that you can have access to that later. And then the other thing that we will be utilizing, so the chat, I'm hoping that we can keep that more comments if you have them, things that are more kind of comment based or kind of housekeeping based. For the questions that we'll be answering, we'll be monitoring the Q&A box. So that should also be in your Zoom toolbar. What you'll notice about that is that you can see everyone's questions. You can either ask anonymously or with your name, and then you'll be able to upvote. So I know that there's a bunch of us on the call or on the webinar here today, which is fantastic. So it may be helpful for you to kind of just glance through those questions. If you see your question, go ahead and upvote that. If you don't see your question though, go ahead and type that in, and other people might have that same question and they'll upvote. So I'll kind of go from, those ones that are upvoted, the frequently asked questions, all the way through to the bottom. So we'll try and tackle as many of your specific questions as we can. So with that, we will go ahead and get going here. So like we said, Kathy and Deanna are with you on the webinar today. You have our contact information there. I think it's also at the end. But if you do have any questions after today, please feel free to give us a shout. We're happy to help along this admissions process. We know it can be kind of daunting, and there's a lot that goes into applying for vet school. So please feel free to reach out. You can take a screenshot of this, or like I said, it's in that shared file folder, which I'm going to share once more for people who may be coming in just a little bit late. So perfect. We will kind of talk a little bit about the agenda today. I know 3 hours is a long time for you to be in Zoom, sitting at your computer or on your phone or whatever. So I understand if people are kind of bouncing in and out. Here's where you'll find kind of that, those kind of chunks of information. First, we want to walk through application details. We'll talk about VMCAS. We'll most importantly cover transcript entry, as well as experience entry. We'll also talk about the supplemental application. And with that, highlighting the status page, which is one of the places where you will want to keep your eye on throughout the admissions process. We will take a little bit of a break for people to, you know, refill their coffee cup or grab some lunch or whatever. And then we'll come back at 11 and we'll really talk about what Iowa State is looking for in applicants. So our admission process as far as what kind of the timeline looks like, but also, you know, those questions like, who should my letters of recommendation be from? What are you looking for in those essays? All of that kind of stuff. Then we'll kind of do some then we'll take another break. We'll do some housekeeping, you know, as far as cleaning up some of those questions that we didn't get to earlier in the session. And then we actually have 2 students that are going to join us at 12:30 to talk about their experience. And that might be a good time to ask questions as far as, you know, I know that they're excited to share some, you know, tips and advice for the application from the student's perspective as well. So with that, I'm gonna just kind of skim through our Q&A box. It looks like you guys have questions rolling in, which is fantastic. Let's see, we will talk about experience, all of that kind of stuff. Perfect, yes. Okay, great, sorry, thanks for allowing me to do that. I just wanna make sure that it looks like we're gonna cover most of your questions that are rolling in throughout the session. The one I did want to address, I know that we have some students on here that are applying in future years. And so that's a really, really good question. You can begin filling out that application now. So if you joined us to learn more about that application, you can actually go and go into VMCAS, open that up, start filling out that application. You will need to ask your letters of recommendation the year you apply, versus kind of getting those in now. And then you did it's an anonymous question, but you did hit on something that I think some students got a sneak preview of, is that those essay questions may be changing in upcoming cycles. So you may not want to work on the essays as much as maybe experience entry, or even going in and entering those coursework things. But you will need to update letters of recommendation and transcripts if you're applying, you know, not this year, but a year out. That's good for students to know too, because some students do intend to apply. It gets to September, you know, you filled out your application, it gets to September and you may just feel not ready yet. And so knowing that you can always just kind of let that application deadline pass, you know, pick up your application the next year. However, you will need to do some updating for that. So great question. We are going to get rolling here with what VMCAS looks like. And then we'll chat about the questions that you're asking in that Q&A box throughout the course of the day. So perfect. Thank you guys. Let's see. Sometimes this clip works and sometimes it doesn't. Okay, so if you have opened up the VMCAS application, or maybe you have it open right now, that's awesome. This is what your application should look like. So you'll see there that you kind of have these 4 quadrants, and we'll chat through those. But I do want to say, most importantly, is this check status page. So, you know, one of the things, and Kathy and I actually just got this question in our Thursday session as well, but one of those questions is, you know, what are some kind of, you know, mistakes or things that kind of prevent students from being looked at. Some of them are simply things like, you know, missing a transcript or missing a letter of recommendation or something like that. So keeping on top of your status page in VMCAS as well as our supplemental application is hugely important. So if you click on that check status, this is what you've seen if you have clicked on it before, but this is what you'll see. You'll see your overall status. That's where your transcripts and your letters of recommendation, you can kind of keep track of that. And then you'll see your programs as well. So you can kind of click through and see what you need for those programs or those schools. So when they say programs, they're really talking about the schools, the colleges and schools of veterinary medicine that you're planning on applying to. So you can see here, my transcript, you know, has not yet arrived. Obviously, I'm not applying for a vet school, so that will never arrive. But you would be able to see there, okay, this transcript from this school has arrived. You know, my 2 letters of recommendation that I've requested so far are slacking. They're not in yet. And it's really funny when you know, send emails to yourself through VMCAS to get those kind of mock letters of recommendation there. But you would see there that those would be maybe completed once those recommenders get in. And we'll talk through, you know, transcript entry and letters of recommendation and everything like that too. But just kind of giving you an idea of kind of the layout. This bell up here is also a really great place to, you know, receive any alerts. Typically, anything that is alerted in VMCAS is also sent as an email. So you see there, your VMCAS application is ready because I reopened it from last year. You know, I got an email about that as well. So those alerts typically come to you as an email, but it's good to double check that too. Just making sure that when we're here, we've got the question. Sorry, I know there will be a little bit of dead air in here, but that's okay. So then we're going to go on to program materials. Again, this is just kind of the layout of VMCAS here. But if you go to your program materials, that's where you're going to see all of those individual schools that you're applying for. And then here is that kind of, if you would click on Iowa State, this is what you would see. I did just get a question, which is a good one. What is the official date that the application is due? We're going to cover that right now. So the application is due. Let's see, I think I can just circle this here. So that is on September 15th of this year. Typically it's at 11:59 Eastern Standard Time. So for, you know, us here in the Midwest, that would be actually 10:59. So it's good to kind of keep that. Well, one, it's good to not wait and hit submit at that last minute, but it's really good to keep in mind that because VMCAS and the company that runs that or the organization that runs that is on East Coast, that deadline is on the East Coast time. So it's 11:59 Eastern, but it's on September 15th this year. Okay, so heading back here. So we do have a supplemental question or an additional question there that we'll cover, or, you know, that you'll need to fill out. And a lot of schools do. So there's one kind of general essay question or an additional essay question that you'll need for us. But then there's also questions for, you know, if you're a Nebraska resident applying to Iowa State, there's some questions there. If you're interested in our combined DVM MBA program, there's specifically some questions there. There are other combined programs, master's programs, but those you would start once you get to vet school. So you wouldn't have to worry about applying for those until you've, gotten to vet school. Okay. So one of the things I wanted to point out is that the VMCAS essay questions are located in your personal information, which I don't know, that strikes me as odd if you're doing all of this demographic stuff and then writing essays, at the very bottom, but they are located there. VMCAS did give you kind of a little bit of a good improvement this year. It used to be located actually in this other information section here. And they have actually pulled those essays out into their own thing. So that should be pretty helpful as far as being able to complete that section on its own. In previous years, we have had students who have done this, so I have these A's here essentially because when it was located in this other information, it wouldn't let me save anything on that page until each field had at least, one character in it. So we would actually have students who would submit their application like this. They would write their essays, they'd make them in Google Docs, they'd have people proofread them, all of that kind of stuff, and then they would forget to copy and paste them into VMCAS. So hopefully that helps. I would say leave that, section incomplete until you actually copy and paste those essays in. Oh, there we go. I had a red arrow in there. Okay, we're going to talk about transcript entry. I know that there are a lot of questions rolling in on this. So Kathy is going to take over for talking about transcript entry. Kathy, let me know when you need me to advance. And then also, I'll try and filter through some of these questions and then feed those to you as we go, or mark them as answers.
That's why I was going to ask you to feed me any questions.
Yep.
Okay. Transcript entry, you basically want to make an exact copy of your transcript. They don't want you changing, they don't want errors in the department name or the first part of the course. They want the exact title. They want an exact copy. And if you do something wrong consistently, like say you have in, for biology classes, you have BIO instead of BIOL for all of those, it will be returned to you. So you want to make an exact copy. You've got here, you can have it done through the professional transcript entry at VMCAS, and that's once they get your transcripts, they will enter it all in for you. It does cost you. Deanna, do you know the cost on?
It's down at the bottom of that slide, $69 for 3 transcripts, and then it goes up from there if you have more than 3 transcripts.
So you can get that done. It will save you time, whether it's worth $69 to you or not. That's totally up to you. It doesn't make any difference as long as they get your transcripts by the deadline. They will complete it, and so you shouldn't have any problems there. You want to advance it?
Yep.
This is what, as Deanna said, this is what you will see when you get in. You first enter, you'll want to enter just your general information. And you will want to go through. I'm lost, Deanna. Sorry.
Oh no, that's okay.
This one doesn't.
So, I think we had wanted to point out that there is a video that helps you with that, but this is essentially what that'll look like.
Okay.
That transcript entry. You can add a course to a semester, or you can add a whole nother semester.
Correct. Okay. Anyway. So you go on, why don't you advance it one more?
Yep.
I think I'm one ahead of you.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Okay. During that time, you will also be asked to do your prerequisites, choose which courses you believe will meet our prerequisites. And so it'll look like this. All our prerequisites are listed, and basically you just need to check the course, if I'm correct, Deanna. You know so much more about the application than I do. That you're asked to check the course as the prerequisite, as our prerequisite. You'll have to do this for each school that you apply to, because each, as this is Iowa State's program information, all the other schools will have the same thing. So you will just go through and basically click on the course you want to fulfill the organic chemistry requirement, and so on and so forth. Move us ahead, Deanna.
Okay. Okay, that's the evaluation. So
Okay.
while we're on transcripts, I do have a lot of questions for us, Kathy.
Okay. That's
The first
great.
one is, what is our plan as far as adapting, transcripts and course requirements with COVID, in regards to COVID?
Okay. What we are doing is we will accept pass, not pass for requirements for courses taken either winter 2020 or spring or summer 2020. Just for those three terms. So we are allowing that for those terms. We will also, transcripts, there is a statement on VMCAS, I believe, for, what if your school can't, maybe your school's still shut down, you can't get transcripts, things like that. We will allow for all of that. And I don't know, Deanna, can you look up, VMCAS I know has a statement on, like, if your school is closed or doesn't reopen, whatever. We will take all that into account. We will also take experiences into account. But the main thing is that we will take pass, not pass, or satisfactory, unsatisfactory coursework for our prerequisites during the winter, spring, and summer terms of 2020. Do they have anything else on that?
Oh, yeah. Perfect. Thank you, Kathy. So when requesting transcripts from our universities, do we send it to the schools directly, or do we send it to VMCAS?
The transcripts need to go to VMCAS. We do not use them the first time around. We will not use transcripts sent to us. They must all go to VMCAS, and you must have every school that you've attended, every post-secondary school you've attended, whether you took those courses in high school, took one course at a community college one summer. They will not verify your application if you do not have a transcript from every school you attended. So if it shows up as a transfer credit on your main school, your primary school transcript, you better have a transcript from that school. Otherwise, VMCAS will send it back to you and say you're missing a transcript. The bad part about this is if you are getting these in early, you have time to get it. If you get them in too late, VMCAS won't accept that transcript, and you'll be out of luck in having your application reviewed. Yep. So it is very, very important that you get all your transcripts to VMCAS. We do GPA recalculations after the fall term. So we have to have your transcript in January for us to do those recalculations. Those transcripts come directly to us. For those that are admitted or are alternates, we need to have your transcript by July 1st for any spring courses you've taken. So the original, when you first submit your application, you must have all your transcripts into VMCAS. This year, I know VMCAS opened early. We want to make sure that you wait to, well, I shouldn't say wait to submit. You can submit and still have transcripts coming in. We need your spring transcript. all schools are requesting your spring transcript, so don't submit everything and then forget about your spring transcript. We need everything through spring 2020, and that is most all the schools, US schools anyway, that work through VMCAS. So don't forget your spring transcript if you started your application when it opened back in January.
Great. Okay, so this next question deals with kind of the arts and humanities and electives.
Okay.
Do you have a preference on which courses they select for that?
We do not. Electives, I get this question a lot. Electives can be any course you took for an actual letter grade or a number grade that you haven't used for another prerequisite. It can be underwater basket weaving for 1 credit. If you want it to count for an elective, it can. We do not use these GPAs on these courses. So electives can be any course taken at an accredited institution for a grade that hasn't been used for any other prerequisite. The social sciences, humanities, there's a million. It can be psychology, sociology, archaeology, philosophy, any literature, all those count. The one thing we do not take are skill courses. So if you're taking a foreign language and that course is specifically to teach you that language, we will not accept that as a social science or humanities. However, in undergraduate, a lot of times if you're getting a minor in Spanish, say, you may have a Spanish culture class within that Spanish language area. We would take that. We just won't take it where it's like Spanish 1, 2, 3, where it's just basically learning to speak it. We also won't use courses like dance or art if you are actually learning those skills. We will take dance appreciation, art appreciation, etc. So it's basically if you're learning, if they're teaching you specifically to learn a skill, we won't take it. If they're teaching you about a culture or appreciating different things, we will take those.
Great. Okay, thank you. Lots of good questions coming in on coursework and transcripts and all of that good stuff. Okay, so we kind of talked about what humanities are. Does ISU, and maybe we should include VMCAS in here, do we accept e-transcripts via parchment?
Yes, we do. VMCAS has some specific rules on electronic transcripts. I know parchment comes both ways. I would check with them because they have only certain places that they accept electronic transcripts from, and it has to be done differently than the way you would do it. You would just send it to our email address. And so I would check with VMCAS. Deanna, do you have the answer on what VMCAS actually does? I know they have specific rules on electronic transcripts.
I don't, but one of the things that I think, put at the end was the help. So if you go up to your VMCAS and you click on the question mark, you will be taken to the help page, and there might be more information, or at least contact information for VMCAS on that. So, yeah.
Yes, please contact them because I know that has in the past caused problems for people.
Mm-hmm. So question about the the professional transcript entry. As far as the cost of that, $69 for your first 3 transcripts, and then it goes up from there. So $69 essentially for 3 schools, not per school or not per school that you're sending it to. It's $69 for VMCAS to enter in 3 separate transcripts. So Dakota asks, if I completed a study abroad program, do I need to send in that transcript as well?
It all depends. With study abroad, if the courses that are on your transcript are courses from your specific school, you will not need to send in a transcript. So I'm trying to think of universities that do that. I think Drexel's one of them. But anyway, if it's like, I don't know, sociology 131 and art 332, whatever, but they're the actual school that you're going to, not where you went and took the courses, but the school that your primary institution, you do not need to send a transcript. However, if you did work, say, did a study abroad at the University of Limerick in Ireland, you will need to get that transcript, and they come in as transfer credits into your primary school from the University of Limerick. You will have to get that transcript. Not only will you have to get that transcript, you will have to send it through the World Educational Services, which does a transcript review for foreign institutions. You will have to send that in to VMCAS. They will not, there's the non-English Canadian and foreign transcripts. There's a help line on that, but yes, it's two different ways. If the course is offered by your institution, you do not need to send a transcript in. If you go to another school and get transfer credits back, even though it may be kind of sponsored by your primary school, you will need to get the transcript, and you will need to have it go through World Educational Services in order to have your application verified, which is what most U.S. schools are looking for, is a verified application to review it.
Great. Okay, so let's see, let's go back up here. I thought I had another one closer to the top, but I don't. Sorry, hold on, guys. Okay, so here's a question. Does a 200 level anatomy class work for anatomy and physiology requirement?
It can, depends upon what the course is. If it's invertebrate anatomy, no, it won't work. But if it's any like human anatomy and physiology, domestic animal anatomy and physiology, anything like that will work.
Great. Okay. Let's see here. When putting in one semester from a school, would you recommend putting the same year and same semester, but the beginning and end months to document when you took that class at the institution?
I don't think VMCAS even, does it allow for that? I think you just put in the semester that you took it, or the quarter that you took it. And like I say, it needs to look exactly like your transcript looks.
Yeah.
But I don't think they have, I guess some do have the length of time. I don't think, in fact, I'm sure VMCAS doesn't allow for saying what the dates of the term were. It only allows for you to put in the term.
The term, okay, great. And then we have a question, clarifying question. What does it mean when it says 2 grade minimum if one course fulfills the requirement? So on this specific example, it says minimum 2 grades. Because we're looking for OChem and the OChem lab.
No, okay.
Right?
This is one thing, no.
No?
No, the minimum grade 2 means you have to have a C. It's a 2 point. Your grade has to be a 2 point.
Oh, okay, got it.
And people get that confused all the time, because I've said, they'll ask me, do I have to put 2 courses in and things like that? No. When it says minimum grade 2.0, it means that your minimum grade can be a 2.0 or a C in order for it to fulfill the requirement. We require a C in all our prerequisites. Some schools don't. So it might say minimum grade 1.7, which would be a C minus. So that is just telling you, without putting the letter grade in, what is the minimum acceptable grade for that prerequisite.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we've got some questions on AP courses. So will AP courses count, number one? And then how do we enter in AP courses?
Enter AP courses as they show up on your transcript. They may show up as a grade of T, or it may show up as AP. We accept them. We do not need your scores if your school has given you, say you've got AP English and they've given you English 150, and it says English 150, 3 credits AP. As long as we accept English 150 as the required, as a course we would accept for English composition, we're good with that. You don't need to give us your scores. If it just says AP 50 credits, which happens a lot, it'll just give us a lump sum AP and how many credits, and they don't tell you how they use those credits. In that case, you need to send us a copy of your scores. I believe now that you can go back in and get them from ETS electronically. We'll take an electronic copy of what they send to you. We don't need the official copy, and if you have to send us an official copy, let us know, because we cannot get those official copies without going through Central Campus, and that's sometimes kind of a bear to do that. Most schools will give you a course and they'll say English 150 AP or test. They'll say, you know, math, whatever, physics 111. So those types of things we will accept, providing they give you credit for a course we accept. But if they just give you a lump sum of credits for those AP, we really need to see what your scores are. At that point, we look at scores and what Iowa State accepts for the score to accept that course. So if you have a specific question, I mean, you can get a hold of me. Send me screenshots if you're worried about something of, you know, what it looks like on your transcript. But we do accept, and most schools will have specific courses for your AP. It's only when they put all your AP credits into one lump sum that we need a copy of your AP score.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. I want to be conscious of our time and getting to the supplemental application as well. The one question that I've gotten a lot in the Q&A box. These are all fantastic questions, and honestly, we could probably be on here until 5 o'clock tonight answering all of your great questions, and we plan to get to most of them. So the last question before you move on, kind of out of transcript entry and coursework and prerequisites, is should they wait and get their summer courses as well?
Okay.
And should they wait and get those transcripts in?
Okay, we do GPA calculations twice. If you want your summer courses and know you can get the transcript to VMCAS before the deadline or by the deadline, by all means, put your summer courses in. We will use whatever we have at the time for initial GPA calculations. So after the deadline, if we don't have your summer courses, we'll use whatever we have up to spring. If you do have your summer courses, we will use your summer courses. So my thought is, if for some reason, you know, you took physics and you got an A and you want to make sure that, you know, you get that in, get that summer grade in, so it counts towards your initial GPA calculations. If you don't really care, it's nothing that's that important, you don't have to rush and get that to us. We will use whatever we have at that time for initial GPA calculations. However, when we recalculate at the end of January, we would want you to send a new transcript with those grades. And if you took summer courses at you know, at a college that wasn't your primary college, we would ask that you send that transcript to us in January.
Great. Okay. And then Kathy, I don't know if you want to kind of skim through the questions and maybe type some answers to,
Yep,
there
I
are
can.
some specific coursework questions. So,
Okay.
so for those of you listening, you should be able to have access to the answered questions as well. And so you'll be able to read through Kathy's typed responses to the questions that we couldn't get to live. And then, like I said, that 12 to 12:30 is when we're going to do that kind of, we're going to clean house on the Q&A box and try and get through as many more questions as we can.
Have you removed some of the questions? I don't
Yeah,
want to type them.
I've started removing the questions. Actually, Rachel, you asked about Canadian things. I don't know that I can. Actually, I think in the answered, Kathy, you may be able to type a question to, or an answer to Rachel's question.
Okay. Yeah, I will.
Yeah, you can type an answer after I hit done, but I need to hit done on a couple of them.
Okay, so the I'm just going to look at the open ones that have anything to do with
Transcript. Yep, that's
transcript.
perfect. Yeah.
That's what I'll do now.
Perfect. A quick one from Mary. She says, what happens if we submit it and we mess up? VMCAS will send it back to you and ask you to redo that, you know, and edit it, and then you'll be able to submit again. One of the benefits of submitting maybe a week or two early is you can, you know, kind of get that done earlier in the application process. But they'll send it back to you, say, hey, there's errors, you know, edit them and then resubmit them. And then one last quick question. Yes, there is a section. Dawn asks, is there a section to include classes that you're planning on taking? And yes, there is. Please put in any planned courses.
Yes.
On VMCAS as well. So
we appreciate that only because we will be asking you if you are missing some prerequisites in particular when you plan on taking them. So we really want everybody to put in their planned courses.
Yep. Perfect. Okay, great. So Kathy will start typing those questions that are maybe a little bit more specific to individual people, but we'll go on and talk just a little bit about entering evaluations, so letters of recommendation. We'll talk about who those people might be, some tips on, you know, asking, some tips on, you know, kind of thinking through who those recommenders are in the second hour. This is just more about like, hey, this is a heads up, here's what it kind of looks like. So, so you'll see here, you'll create an evaluation request. Obviously, I'm requesting for my own self to, you know, evaluate, so it's a little bit weird. You can set a due date here. You can set that earlier than the VMCAS due date if you'd like. That way you can maybe be sure that that person, you know, gets it in on time, or maybe doesn't, you know, get annoyed with you maybe asking, hey, that deadline's coming up. So that they can submit their evaluation past the individual deadline that you may set, but they still have that hard deadline of September 15th. So this is just kind of a way for you to maybe, you know, encourage them to get it in earlier than the deadline that you have for VMCAS. So it doesn't mean that they still can't submit it up until that September 15th deadline. So you will have a spot where you can put in a nice note here. Most students waive the right of access to that evaluation. And then you can give, or you would need to give, you know, essentially VMCAS permission to contact the reference if maybe something goes wrong with their recommendation. And then you also give the schools, you know, a permission to contact them. Again, if there's something wrong or something off about their recommendation. So when you hit that submit button, about 30 seconds later, your recommender is going to get an email exactly like this. This is a screenshot from my email. So you can see there, it says, you know, the due date, it gives that little personal message, although I changed my personal message a little bit. So that's different than the personal message that was on the last slide. But you can, you know, that personal message is in there. They're going to click on this link here and they're going to create a profile. And then this is what they're going to see. So they're going to, they may, and especially if you maybe are a pre-vet student at a, you know, institution where there's a whole host of pre-veterinary students, maybe your recommender is doing multiple letters of recommendation. They're going to actually be able to see all of the students here, which is kind of nice. So you can see there, when you requested it, also when they are asking for that back, and then they can start their recommendation. So then what they're going to do is they're going to let us know, or let, you know, VMCAS know a little bit more about that, about you and about your relationship with them. So you're going to have, they're going to kind of have a questionnaire. They're going to have this analysis, which is essentially just like a, you know, rank this student from 1 to 5 on things like, you know, professionalism, communication skills, all of those kind of interpersonal skills. And then they'll be able to upload a letter of recommendation. I know for a lot of schools, and for us, that's very important that that letter is uploaded. Or sorry, they can either upload it, or there is a text box where they can just type it in to the portal too. Either way is fine as far as that goes. But again, there's that kind of personal message there. So that's kind of what that, what those recommenders are seeing. I wanted you guys to be able to get an idea of, okay, you filled out the information and then it just like poof goes into the ether without, you know, you kind of knowing what's on the back end. So this kind of gives you an idea of what the recommender is seeing. This way, maybe even, you know, you can touch base with them and say, hey, when you're asking for that, say, hey, here's what you're going to get. You're going to get a link to this portal. You're going to, you know, create a username and password or sign in if you've done one of these before in the last, you know, couple of years. And then, you know, here's how you kind of fill it out. So that just kind of gives you, hopefully a good idea of what they're seeing too. So there's that help button. If you have any questions, especially questions related to VMCAS, and we'll probably, you know, keep reiterating that if you have questions about VMCAS, VMCAS is the best place to get those questions answered. The most I can do is play around on the VMCAS website and you know, see if I can discover an answer for you. But either this help button right here, which takes you to this help center page, that's going to be the best place for you. So with that, we're coming up on a break here, but stick with us. We want to talk a little bit about the supplemental application, and then we'll take a break in just a little bit. So great. So supplemental application is up. That's in that link to the shared file folder, which I will put once again in the chat because I know some people have joined us since the last time I posted it. So you should see that shared file folder, which has a link to the supplemental application. There was a question about filling out the supplemental application, you know, at a different time than VMCAS. As soon as you open up that VMCAS application, you get a VMCAS ID. You can go ahead and create a supplemental application. So we kind of use it throughout the admissions process. That's why you'll see class of 2024 down here. This new supplemental application, though, is the one that you're going to want to fill out. You'll notice that it has the same exact deadline as VMCAS. So you don't, you know, necessarily want to submit VMCAS and then wait for us to send you a link or something. I know some schools do that. You want to fill this out right alongside your VMCAS application, but you do need to start that first so that you get that VMCAS ID. So you're going to click that button. You're going to say create an account there. Then you're going to kind of fill out your, username, password. That's where that VMCAS ID goes. Then you'll have these kind of, we call them terms of use. And I like that it says this is not just legal text. This is really your key to everything you need to know about as far as the admissions process. And there's a way to get back into that and reread it after you, have read it through once. So really, it's talking about all of the stuff that we'll kind of go through, but checking your status page, communicating through the message board, all of that kind of stuff. So please read through this section when you go and create a new account. Then that's going to take you to your status page. That's what this is right here. So your application status will change throughout the course of our admissions process. So it will go from none to in academic review, then to committee review, and then to a final decision. So that's a good place to keep an eye on. Please note, though, that is actually changed manually. So the minute you hit submit on your VMCAS application, that may take a little while to change. So kind of keep in mind that we do a lot of this manually. So your status may not change, immediately, automatically. You may have to wait a day or two. If it's, longer than that, maybe give us a shout. But make sure that it, that it's not kind of instant. So, I have little arrows. There we go. Supplemental application. Then this messaging system is actually the way for us to communicate with you about your application. So if you have questions about your application, you can go ahead and send us a message through this messaging system. And then if we need something from you or we have an announcement, it's going to get posted on that admissions, on that messaging system. That way, all of your communication about your application is all in one spot. So it's very important to check that message board, to check for messages there, to communicate with us through that message system. And then we actually you'll fill out, you used to have to print this electronic signature page out and mail it in with a check. You can still do that. However, you can also now do that all online. So you don't have to worry about, filling out a piece of paper and finding a stamp and a check and all of that kind of stuff. So you can do that online as well. So just kind of as an update, I submitted my supplemental application. So you'll see here it says submitted. I did turn in the electronic signature page, so you'll see that. I have not paid my fee yet, so you will. I would need to do that still. And then you can see here my supplemental application status has been submitted there. There's where you can click on those terms of use and review those whenever you need to. Okay, so I know that we're running about 3 minutes over. Now is the time for a break. I know we're still getting some really good transcript class questions going on in there, and I think Kathy is furiously answering those. Thank you, Kathy. So question here, do we need to create a new application account if you applied last year? For the supplemental, yes. For VMCAS, you should be able to just redo that. So the supplemental application link is in VMCAS, but it is also on our website. So what's interesting is that there's an additional question in VMCAS under those program materials. That is not our supplemental application. So you need to fill out our supplemental application, which is essentially some demographic data, and then kind of listing your top 5 high school and undergraduate kind of awards and activities. So there you do have to do the additional question in VMCAS, and then also our supplemental application. Kian says, let's see, did you say we should submit the supplemental app before submitting the VMCAS? No, you can submit them both at the same time. You can submit one earlier than the other. They just both need to be done by that September 15th deadline. So, yes, so the supplement, Alexis, hopefully I answered that question. The supplemental application is just a little bit more demographic data, and then kind of your top 5 experiences and awards from both high school and undergrad. Essentially, that just helps our admissions committee kind of get to know you a little bit better and what's important to you.